I've got good news and bad news. Here's the bad news. Most protein bars are packed with sugar and unpronounceable ingredients. The good news? There's a better option. I'm Will, and I created IQ Bar plant protein bars to empower doers like you with clean, delicious, low-sugar brain and body fuel. IQ bars are packed with 12 grams of protein, brain nutrients like magnesium and lion's mane, and zero weird stuff. And right now, you can get 20% off all IQ Bar products, plus free shipping. Try our delicious IQ Bar sampler pack with 7 plant protein bars, 4 hydration mixes, and 4 enhanced coffee sticks. Clean ingredients, amazing taste, and you'll love how you feel. Refuel smarter, hydrate harder, caffeinate larger with IQ Bar.
Go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20 to get 20% off all IQ Bar products plus free shipping. Again, go to eatiqbar.com and enter code BAR20.
Political turbulence for Air Canada's CEO, and MPs square off over immigration and the war. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Deeper than the headlines.
The answers you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Our politicians are in a fighting mood, and one of the people in their sights is the CEO of Air Canada. His name is Michael Rousseau, but he doesn't speak French, and there are calls for him to resign after he issued a message of condolences to those affected by the Air Canada crash at LaGuardia Airport. Except for saying bonjour and merci, his entire message was in English. Prime Minister Carney said he's disappointed.
I'm very disappointed, as others are, rightly so, in this unilingual message of the CEO of Air Canada. It doesn't matter the circumstance, but particularly in these circumstances, a lack of judgment and lack of compassion. As you know, the Committee of Official Languages has summoned the CEO to appear before it. I will follow his comments closely, and comments which I would expect in due course from the Board of Directors.
It's not the first time Mr. Rousseau's been in trouble for his inability to speak French. Back in 2021, he gave a speech that was almost all in English, and later told reporters that he didn't need to learn French in order to live in Montreal. He apologized, though, and said he would take French lessons. The leader of the Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet, wants the CEO fired, saying he keeps insulting Quebecers and all other French Canadians.
And all French Quebecers and French Canadians to keep the job he has presently. The board of Air Canada should act on it. The government should put all necessary pressure on the board for them to make the only right decision in this situation, and it's to make sure that he leaves.
Why is that so important? Why do you think it's so important for him not to be there?
There's a limit to the number of insults that one is supposed to stand before making a decision.
The Conservatives are also upset about the CEO's behavior. Pierre-Paul Houze is a top Quebec MP for the Conservatives.
We find it totally unacceptable. The Air Canada is a company that is the two official language are supposed to be used by the employees, people who work in the airplanes. Often we have some passenger coming from Quebec. They ask for a steward, I don't know if it's a good word, who speak French. And actually we have the CEO who don't care about French, because 5 years ago been asked to learn French, at least for this statement, for the death of the two pilots, one pilot from Quebec. He's at least can read in French. Doesn't matter if you understand it, but at least he can read a screen in French, but he didn't do that. So it's unacceptable.
Mr. Rousseau has apologized. He says he still can't speak the language, but that he's trying to improve. Nevertheless, he will be hauled in front of the Official Languages Committee on Parliament Hill to explain himself. While all the political parties agree that something needs to be done about the CEO of Air Canada, they're not finding much other common ground. All week, the Conservatives have been calling on the Prime Minister to fire his last 3 ministers of immigration following a damning audit about student visas from Canada's Auditor General. And that was the demand again from Pierre Poilievre as he put questions to Prime Minister Carney in question period for for the first time in a few weeks.
Compared to the Harper government, the last sane policy in immigration, we have asylum claims are now up to 2,880%. Temporary foreign workers up 178%. International students up 39%. And yesterday, the Auditor General condemned the current Liberal Justice Minister, Liberal Heritage Minister, and Liberal Immigration Minister for allowing 150,000 cases of fraud to go uninvestigated. Will he fire them, or will he just continue with the same Liberal incompetence?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm blessed with a strong cabinet that's working hard for a strong country. And we are taking control of the immigration system. Asylum seekers down by a third, foreign students down by 60%, temporary foreign workers down by 50%, the population equilibrated, equal. We are investigating 100% of every fraud cases since this new government came to office. We have the system under control.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
All an illusion, same old Liberals, same old failures.
As for the NDP, it's just days away from choosing a new party leader. But for now, the party's interim leader says he doesn't think Prime Minister Carney's been clear enough on where he stands on the war in the Middle East. And Don Davies wants to know what the government is going to do about the rising cost of living because of the war.
The very, very misguided war on Iran by Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu was probably done to avoid heat that he was receiving on the Epstein files. But more importantly, he pointed out that Canadians are experiencing serious financial harm as a result of this war. In fact, economists are predicting that the financial turmoil, the economic chaos caused by this conflagration is going to last for years to come. And you know, this was not only entirely foreseeable, it was predicted. And now Canadians are experiencing that. They're seeing sky-high prices at the gas pumps. We're expecting to see the prices on everything from food to fertilizers soar. And even things like Canadians' access to health services may be impacted if things like helium supplies are interrupted, which we expect to happen, and therefore medical procedures may have to be postponed. Now, the Prime Minister is an economist, and yet he supported this war, continues to support this war, albeit with regret. And I'm calling on him today to account to the Canadian people for that support. What does he, as an economist, have to say to the Canadian people who are now going to bear the financial brunt in every household in this country as a result of this war on Iran, which he and his government have supported?
The NDP's leadership race wraps up on Sunday, and the winner will be revealed at the party's convention in Winnipeg. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow returns on News Radio.
He's my friend on the right side of things. Michael Taube is a columnist for the National Post, Troy Media, and Loonie Politics, and was a speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Welcome back.
Hey, Rob. Hope you're having a good day today.
So far, so good. Sunday is decision day for NDP supporters. Michael, the party will finally pick a new leader. Avi Lewis is considered to be the front runner.
Yep.
More left of the militant activist wing of the New Democrats wants to tax the rich, wants the government to run grocery stores, banks, telecom companies, wants rent control nationwide, wants the government to build 1 million homes, opposes pipelines, thinks Canada should phase out fossil fuels, supports higher immigration levels, would cancel the Safe Third Country Agreement, and everyone here on an expired permit would be granted legal immigration status. Just a few of his policies. What do you think of them?
I don't think much of them, and I don't think most people do any longer in this country. The NDP is an irrelevant party as of right now, and as I wrote recently in the National Post column, they will become more irrelevant if they elect someone like Avi Lewis to become the leader of the NDP. Now, in fairness, I don't think any of the people who are running for the NDP could help them much. I think some of them could probably have a little bit more mainstream appeal here and there, and I use that with very significant quotations around mainstream. But someone like Heather McPherson, I think, could probably get the party a little bit further than Avi Lewis could, or Rob Ashton, or others who are running. The real problem is that, and you basically explained it, we can go through some of the policies that Mr. Lewis has, who looks like the likely winner or the person who will likely be chosen by the NDP come this weekend. They're just basically, it's the fringe of the fringiest left that we're looking at right now. And it's come to a point that even in Canada, which obviously has a tradition of left of center ideas, whether you want to call them small L liberal, big L liberal, depending on the time of year, and the time that we live in actually, this country, and what politics was like at certain periods of time. In other words, what was in favor, wasn't in favor. Most of what the NDP represents today is so far off to the radical left that it's just not going to grow, no matter how many polls like ECOS, which recently presented that it could actually jump up. I just don't buy it, and I don't think most people do. And privately, I don't think a lot of NDP supporters do either, based on conversations I've had with them.
Okay. Well, let's take this one policy just because it's the one that makes news most of the time, because it was so prevalent in the New York City election, which was carried by Mamdani, also a leftist, right? Democratic socialist. Government-run grocery stores. Government-run grocery stores. You see news stories about that from time to time. Hey, it could work. I mean, what do you think of an idea like that? The government running a grocery store?
Well, to begin with, it doesn't work. I mean, they tried it in Minnesota. It was a complete failure. And Minnesota, much like New York City, has a very strong liberal contingent. So if it was going to work in some sort of a progressive area, it would have been there, but it failed miserably. If you've noticed, since Mamdani has become mayor, it still pops up from time to time. It's been probably mentioned a little bit in speeches, but they're not moving full throttle, because I would imagine that even Mamdani, as far left as he is, probably got in and was probably sat down and told that, the idea may theoretically, influence your voting supporters and the voting base and got you into office, among many other things that he proposed out of thin air, because the man doesn't have any money to fund any of this, and he knows it. I think it just basically became an idea that was just extremely popular with people who thought, the state could run grocery systems well. But remember, the places where we've seen it in action includes the Soviet Union. And even there, if you look at the lessons of history, that failed a lot too, where they had huge run on food, certain products were not available, massive lineups. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. And I think that, Avi Lewis to promote it, sure, because he's far left like Mamdani. It works for him, and his base will obviously, in theory, support it. But there's no way on earth this is ever going to go through. It doesn't matter. Lewis is never going to become prime minister. He's never going to lead the NDP to much of anything. But it's a ridiculous idea that has failed many times.
He would like to, you would think, if he's going to be the leader of a federal party, have a seat in the House of Commons. He's tried twice before. He's run in the last two elections, been defeated both times in BC. But there will soon be an opening in a Toronto area riding where you are, Beaches, East York, which is held by Nate Erskine-Smith. He's a liberal who wants to jump to provincial politics. There'll be an opening there.
Right.
Do you think he has if he ran there, if Avi Lewis ran there, would he have a shot of winning?
Well, I wrote actually in that same National Post column I quoted earlier, yes, he would actually have a chance. And if you look at some polling data that was done by Mainstream Research, where they did 3 models, one of which was Erskine-Smith running again, and then basically having a fellow Rob Ashton, who's also running for the NDP leadership, how he would fare, and Avi Lewis as the third scenario. The only one who came up ahead by a small margin was Avi Lewis. Doesn't surprise me. Beaches, East York, to really just tie into a neat little bow, is very left-leaning, very progressive-oriented, and the NDP have done exceptionally well provincially there in Ontario, and quite well federally, too, having held it a couple times. So if Lewis is going to win, that's his type to see.
When we come back, take me out to the ball game. It's the start of the Major League Baseball season. Michael's Yankees won last night. Blue Jays play tomorrow. And we have computerized balls and strikes now for instant replays. I want to ask Michael about that when we return. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now you know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Michael Taube is with us, columnist with the National Post, Troy Media, Loonie Politics, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. It's March 26th, Michael, and the boys of summer are back. March 26th. Yeah, baseball season, the 162-game March to October, officially underway.
Yep.
Your Yankees.
I am.
Pretty good last night. Yep.
Yeah, they played
7-0.
well. Yep.
It's the Giants. Toronto Blue Jays home opener is tomorrow at Rogers Centre. But I want to ask you about the big change for Major League Baseball this season is something called ABS, Automated Ball Strike Challenge System. So you still have the human umpire behind the plate, but now pitchers, catchers, and batters can challenge a call instantly by just tapping on their helmet or cap. Managers, interestingly enough, cannot challenge. I find that interesting. What do you think of the change?
I'm not crazy about it, to be perfectly honest. I mean, look, the human eye and human error is supposed to be part of the game of any sport, whether it's baseball or anything else. I think it's not that ABS does not work. It does. It's been used in the minor league system. Korea uses it for their baseball leagues. And the major leagues used it in.
They used it last night in the Yankee game. It was used for the first time last night in the Yankee. It was used for the first time last night in the Yankee game, and the challenge failed.
Yes, it is ironic though that it was Jose Caballero who actually was the one who challenged it because he had a strike against him, and he was, much like his name, trying to get a ball, or BALL. It's actually part of his last name. So that trivia question will probably live on forever. But anyway, it failed. The strike was upheld. Look, I like it for accuracy, and I understand that. It slows down baseball a little bit, which is unnecessary because as much as I love the game, you love it, and others love it, it is, it's not a quick game. It never has been. These sorts of things drag it a bit. Now, to be fair, it's 2 challenges per team, so it's not a wild problem. It is interesting that managers are not allowed to do it. And I'll leave you with this. CNN actually put out a little clip and noted that based on some of the studies they had done, unsurprisingly, pitchers and catchers, have the better view of the ball. Hitters, got it right, I believe, actually just a little less than half the time. But again, it's the angle. It's where they're standing, where they're sitting, and the hope spots that they're hoping for that just somebody got it wrong. But now I hate it. Yeah. I really don't like it at all.
I'm kind of a baseball purist. Like, I don't like that we have designated hitters. I don't like that rule. I think pitchers should hit. And I don't like the new extra innings rules as well during the regular season. I'm a purist. I like the human element of sport. It just brings added drama to it, whether a call goes your way or you feel that the officials made a bad call. To me, that's all part of the game.
It definitely is. Look, the DH rule has been around since you and I have been alive, so obviously I'm just used to it. So it doesn't bother me a lot. The extra innings, I tend to agree with you as well. Look, to be fair, human error was what cost Andres Galarraga a perfect game a number of years ago, as many people may remember. He got that 27th and final out. It was pretty clear, but the umpire made a mistake, and to this day is still apologetic about it. So ABS would help prevent certain things, but how much of it do you need? So I'm with you. Enough.
All right. Great to hear from you. Enjoy the baseball season, and we'll speak next week.
You bet. Take care.
Michael Taube, columnist with the National Post, Troy Media, Loonie Politics, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Newsday panel, Focus Nova Scotia. We have much to discuss. What's been happening in that province? Coming up next, right after the news on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
It's our Thursday Newsday panel. That means it's time for Focus Nova Scotia. Christine Saulnier is back with us, Director, Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Nova Scotia. Welcome back.
Good
Christine,
afternoon.
good to hear from you. And Rob Batherson, Vice President, Atlantic Canada at Enterprise Canada. Rob Batherson, how are you?
Great, Rob. How are you?
I'm very good. Batherson, eh? I knew quite a few Bathersons growing up in North Sydney, Nova Scotia.
No?
I did indeed, yes.
Oh, very good.
I
Well,
went
that's where I was born.
Who did I know? I knew Huey Batherson.
Huey's my first cousin.
Used to do. There you go. His brother is Normie.
That's right.
Normie Batherson, who is the father of Drake Batherson, the great hockey player for the Ottawa Senators. His sister is in the PWHL. And I went to school with Bonnie Batherson as well, who was a great Highland dancer. So there you go. It's all in the family.
Bonnie's now out in BC with her husband and family, and was able to see Drake last week in Ottawa. And May's having a heck of a year with Minnesota. I think she plays defense, unlike Drake, who's a forward, and I think has 2 goals, 9 assists this year with the Minnesota Frost.
Very good. Good for her. Good for her. All right. I won't even get you started about Mac Minglewood or General John Cabot Trail. That's a conversation for another day. But why don't we jump in here, because we got a lot of serious issues to cover. News this week, electricity rates will go up in Nova Scotia. Christine Saulnier, but not by as much as the utility asked for. I want to know what you think of that development, Christine.
Well, I'm certainly pleased to see that it's not going up as much as they had asked for, Nova Scotia Power. I mean, I think what we're seeing is perhaps that the worst decision Nova Scotia made was to sell Nova Scotia Power, and then maybe our Minister of Energy could have more power over their decisions. But I am pleased to see that it's not as high, but very concerned about how high it will go and how many Nova Scotians are really struggling to pay for their energy bills. You know, a 9% return for shareholders, that's a pretty sweet deal. I think many Nova Scotians will feel the impact of those increasing energy prices.
Okay. I would like to know, just before we get to Rob, what you think of how the Premier has handled this. He has called the original request, for example, from Nova Scotia Power, he called it tone deaf. What do you think about that, Christine?
Yes, well, as I say, I mean, I think that we do need to have more say over the decisions that Nova Scotia Power is making, and we need to be thinking about what this means for everyday Nova Scotians. And there was a pushback on that return for shareholders, and they refused to actually lower it. So, you know, I mean, this is a government that should actually have more say. And again, really not pleased to see the kind of increases that we're seeing coming down the pipe for Nova Scotians.
Rob Batherson, what do you think about, first of all, the utility not getting the rate hike that it wanted?
Well, costs are going up everywhere in terms of energy and electricity, and it doesn't really matter what the ownership model is. If you talk to people in New Brunswick with NB Power, the costs are going up there, and the cost of the debt is ultimately borne by taxpayers. One of the things that we have in Nova Scotia, thankfully, is a number of years ago, the Houston government commissioned a Clean Electricity Solutions Task Force. I was involved in working on that. One of the recommendations was creating a separate Nova Scotia Energy Board, pulling it out from the former Utility Review Board and focusing in on energy and electricity issues. And also, for the first time, ensuring that both affordability and climate change were part of the factors that were covered off by the Nova Scotia Energy Board. And in fact, that change in the governance model was unanimously adopted. The PC government introduced it. The Liberals and the NDP voted in favor of it. And I think we do better as a province when we find ways to work together across party lines. And now that we have this dedicated Nova Scotia Energy Board in place, this is a sign that it's working. It's not, nobody wants to pay higher electricity rates, but the fact that the rate is lower than what the utility first applied for shows that the new energy board is working to some extent.
Okay, well, this is a nice segue. I mean, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Nobody wants to pay higher electricity rates. I think we all understand that. But we also don't want to suffer brownouts and blackouts, which is not just a Nova Scotia issue, by the way. Provincial electricity grids are under pressure all across the country. Customers in Nova Scotia were recently told to conserve electricity during a cold snap. During a recent weather event, the province had to import power from New Brunswick just to keep the lights on. And we know that electricity demand is only going to go up. Population growth, electrification from EVs, heat pumps, AI data centers. So, Christine, if people don't want to pay higher rates, where does the money come from to meet all of this growing demand for electricity?
Well, I mean, we obviously have to be investing in the renewable energy transition, and we need to make our homes much more energy efficient, right? We need to actually decrease the amount of energy that we're wasting. That's part of the solution. I mean, renewable cost-wise have come down significantly. They've been coming down for decades, and we really haven't been investing in ways that would see us be a little bit more insulated from, volatile oil costs and all of that. We do have to invest in order to reap the benefits, but we have to be smart about what that investment is. And I don't see a government that's actually really investing where it needs to be. We've seen some pullback. In fact, you mentioned electric vehicles. I mean, it's a tiny part of the solution. It is part of the solution as we look at, how volatile oil prices are and what does that mean. What else can we be doing here to invest in solar and heat pumps? We've seen some of those rebates actually be, clawed back. So I think there's lots of room here to be addressing so that energy overall is much less expensive and much less volatile.
What do you think, Rob Batherson? Just very quickly here, Rob Batherson, on that. How do we meet the demand while you keep rates in check?
We have to do a better job of developing our own resources. Imagine if we could use our own natural gas to support electricity costs rather than import more expensive natural gas from the United States and Western Canada. We're using natural gas from the U.S. and Western Canada here in Nova Scotia. We should be developing our own resources, make it more affordable, and keep those jobs and benefits here.
When we return, the budget passed yesterday. Nobody was allowed in the gallery of the legislature to witness the vote. And even if they were there, they would have noticed the absence of the premier and the finance minister. Not a great look not being there for the final budget vote. We'll talk about that when we return. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Focus Nova Scotia today. Christine Saulnier, Director of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, Nova Scotia, and Rob Batherson, Vice President, Atlantic Canada at Enterprise Canada. A deeply unpopular provincial budget passed yesterday. I mean, what do you think about the final budget? First of all, Christine Saulnier, what do you think about what's left there?
I mean, I certainly have had concerns about the budget since budget day, since, we were in lockup having a look at what is in the budget. And we've talked about concerns around the tax cuts and the revenue loss that will benefit higher income Nova Scotians more than anybody else. And then here we are with this big deficit and certainly cuts to public sector jobs and broader public sector, plus the arts and culture and heritage and small museums. I mean, taken together, there's lots to be concerned about here. But, having the kind of attention we've had to this budget, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, never seen this kind of attention. And to have the Premier and the Minister of Finance not there when all eyes are on this passage, I think is part of the story that we've been hearing from this government. Unfortunately, it's this disdain for democracy. It's concerning to me. The process is important. It's important for Nova Scotians to understand much more around what the full impact of this budget is, and it's certainly not clear at this point.
Okay. I mean, this, Rob Batherson, is a budget that the Premier had to do a mea culpa on, had to meet the media and apologize to people. We went too far, we went too fast, this sort of stuff. The climb down was not complete 100%. There's still cuts in this budget. What do you think about how it all played out in the end?
Yeah, I don't think controversial budgets are anything new or extraordinary in Nova Scotia. I worked for a government 25 years ago that reduced the size of the public service, had very, very well publicized fights with public sector unions, and yet started a path of delivering 6 straight balanced budgets, tax relief, and a lower debt to GDP ratio. When the NDP were in government, they imposed the largest tax increase in the history of this province. They raised the HST. They cut schools. They cut universities. You talk about arts and culture. I chaired the board of Neptune Theatre when the NDP cut our operating budget, and we rolled up our sleeves and we put forward a case and we engaged partners in the arts and culture sector. We met with the culture minister at the time, Leonard Prera, and we got some of that year-end money that governments of all stripes tend to have. And of course, when the Liberals were in office, they eliminated the film tax credit, attracted massive protests, and they also had very well publicized fights with the public sector. Those contracts that the courts have since ruled have been unconstitutional, and the bill is still due on that. So I don't see anything new with that. I think one of the refreshing things that Nova Scotians have noticed is that, when people object to what's in a budget, Tim Houston and his government took the time to listen and make a change, which is very different than what we've seen from past premiers of all political.
But what kind of look is it, Rob Batherson, when the time comes from the final vote in the legislature, the premier is at an energy conference in Texas, and the finance minister, I guess he had somewhere else to be at a meeting. Well, what's bigger than the final vote on the budget if you're the minister of finance and neither of them are there?
Well, I mean, the premier's doing his job. The premier's doing his job. He's at the same energy conference in Texas as Premier Tony Wakeham from Newfoundland Labrador that just did an incredible oil and gas deal with Equinor and the Bay du Nord project. He was at the same conference as Tim Hodgson, Mark Carney's Minister of Energy. So the Premier was out doing his job promoting energy growth and revenue growth for Nova Scotia, which will help pay for the programs and services that we need, help bring, we talked about electricity costs in the previous segment, help bring electricity costs down. And so he was doing his job. The finance minister was on site at the legislature. He didn't make the vote on the Appropriations Act, but there's going to be a Financial Measures Act vote at some point, maybe as early as tomorrow, maybe next week. And I'm sure the Premier and the Minister will be there for that.
Very quickly, Christine, the Speaker, again, banned people from the legislature for this vote. They couldn't go see it. What do you think of that?
It's very concerning to me. I do, again, think it fits into what we've been seeing, which is concerning. People have the right to hold our government to account, to hear answers to questions. We haven't heard many answers to many questions. This is a government that tried to curtail the power of the Auditor General, that doesn't really want to answer questions to media, and the Premier himself gets quite personally attacked by fair questions about what was the process leading up to this, who was consulted, how were they consulted. Surely that should be what happened before the budget was presented. The kind of anxiety that came from the cuts that were presented, hundreds upon hundreds of cuts to grants and programs, that will have a tremendous impact. Yeah, they rolled back some of them. People are still feeling very anxious about what's next for this government, with very few opportunities to get answers to questions.
Okay. Well, I'll have to stop here. I want your take on that, Rob Batherson, the Speaker banning people from the legislature. I'll also want to talk. Look, Halifax used to be kind of a beachhead for the NDP in Nova Scotia. There's an NDP leadership race underway. Is there any signs of life for the NDP in Nova Scotia right now? Let's talk about that when we come back. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Christine Saulnier here, Rob Batherson as well, Focus Nova Scotia. What do you think, Rob Batherson, about the Speaker not allowing people into the legislature for a budget vote?
Well, I think we've seen a number of MLAs who have been threatened. We've seen a number of MLAs who and not only MLAs but staff who've been concerned about having a safe workplace. So it's always that fine line of making sure that our legislative assembly is accessible and open. Of course, people can still follow along all the proceedings online, but I think what the Speaker's trying to do is strike the balance between safety for MLAs, safety for staff, and staying open and accessible. Okay.
The Nova Scotians have sent many NDP MPs to Ottawa over the years. Alexa McDonough, Peter Stauffer, Megan Leslie. So it's had a beachhead in that province. Christine, what's your sense of it? Is this leadership race given new life to the NDP in Nova Scotia? What's your sense of it?
Well, I think leadership races often do. And, as a policy wonk, I've been really keen to listen to what some of the policy proposals are, because I think they will motivate people to the ballot box to support a party that's talking about things like public grocery stores, maybe even public telecommunications, a wealth tax, things that will make Canada, a country that is fairer, that really looks at where the gaps are in the social safety net, maybe makes employment insurance a better program, and really addresses where we need to go as a country, that we support people better. Those kinds of issues, I think, will in fact have people, and have had people, discussing some really interesting ideas. That will motivate people. I have no doubt about that. Okay. And so, I think it's been good.
Okay. Rob, what do you think?
Well, I think the NDP is very much facing an existential crisis, certainly at the federal level. And, I don't think that's healthy for democracy. I think democracy is good when we have choice. And I am still in a bit of a shock because, I grew up in Lower Sackville, which was first a beachhead for the NDP provincially, and then federally when Peter Stauffer was an MP for 18 years. And I think we're dealing now with kind of the legacy of Jagmeet Singh literally applying medically assisted and dying in terms of his leadership on the NDP. They have vanished in Nova Scotia. I mean, I don't have to tell Christine what she knows. She was a candidate for the federal NDP. I was a candidate for the federal Conservatives. If you had told me 18 months ago that the NDP would get 14% of the vote in the federal riding of Halifax, that Megan Leslie won, that Alexa McDonough held, that Christine was the main alternative to Andy Fillmore in 2019, that Lisa Roberts, a well-respected former MLA, got 39%. I couldn't believe it. So I think the challenge for whichever person wins the NDP leadership is, how does the party become relevant again? Because right now, they have pretty much vanished from Nova Scotia and from the Canadian political scene.
All right, we'll see what happens with it on Sunday. It's going to be interesting. Thank you to the two of you for your time today. All the best. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob. Thanks, Christine. Have a great day.
Yeah, bye-bye. Christine Saulnier from the CCPA. From Enterprise Canada, Rob Batherson. Talk back. We're going to talk about social media. This huge court verdict in Los Angeles yesterday on social media called It's Big Tobacco Moment.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today, regulating social media. Among the biggest news stories today is the verdict about social media companies. A jury in Los Angeles has found Meta, the parent company of Facebook and Instagram, along with YouTube, owned by Alphabet or Google. A jury has decided that those companies knew that their platforms were harmful to young people, has found that they failed to warn users about those potential harms, and has found that they engineered their products to be addictive. Case involved a young woman named Kaylee. Kaylee is now 20 years old, but she first started using YouTube at the age of 6 and first started using Instagram at the age of 9. Her lawyers claimed that the use of these platforms became so all-consuming for her that she developed anxiety, depression, body dysmorphia, suffered from suicidal thoughts, engaged in self-harm. Her lawyers also argued that these platforms were designed. They were intentionally designed to keep children online for as long as possible through various features, including the infinite scroll, autoplay, beauty filters, algorithmic recommendation loops, reward-based engagement systems, the same sort of features you would see in an online casino, for example. The social media companies countered and said, no one social media platform can be responsible for someone's mental health. That mental health is more complex than that. And a variety of factors can contribute to poor mental health. YouTube, for its part, claimed YouTube is not a social media platform at all. YouTube claimed it was a streaming platform and not a social media platform. We can debate that today. But whatever the company said, the jury wasn't buying it. And it awarded Kaylee $6 million in damages. The Canadian angle to all of this is there are similar lawsuits planned in this country that argue basically the same thing. One of those lawsuits involves a coalition of school boards in Ontario, and some provincial governments are thinking of joining the BC government in a lawsuit against these big social media platforms. And now these big social media platforms, they've just lost in court. They will appeal, but it is being called social media's big tobacco moment. It's the idea that these companies operate just like big tobacco companies way back in the day when they were denying that their products were harmful, denying that their products cause cancer, for example. But eventually the truth came out. And, they had to pay billions and billions and billions of dollars in damages for the harm that their products caused. Cases now being made. Social media is no better. And this is the reckoning. This is the start of the reckoning. So here's what we want to know today with your help at 1-833-668-2577. Given that a jury has found that social media platforms are harmful to young people by design, should social media be regulated the same way other harmful products are regulated to protect children, like tobacco or alcohol or cannabis, with things like age limits, age verification systems requiring parental consent, warning labels, time limits? Would you support that? Some countries are doing that already, most notably Australia. Or do you think regulation of social media for young people should be handled at home by parents? Is that your position? For example, the plaintiff in this case, now 20, was using social media at the age of 6. 6. Is that social media's fault? Or is that a failure of parenting? What do you think? What's your opinion? Where do you stand? We don't let 12-year-olds walk into the liquor store and walk out with a bottle of rye. If social media platforms are causing great harm to young people, should we really let young people on social media at the age of 12? We don't let 10-year-olds buy packs of smokes. We don't let them buy pot at the pot store. Should we really let them use a social media platform for hours and hours and hours on end, or should that sort of thing be regulated by the government? Yes? No? Or would you say, that's not the government's business? These sorts of decisions belong at home. They should be made by parents, not bureaucrats. I'll tell you what, it's a giant can of worms for these social media companies. Now that they have been found liable in one case, they will have to answer for hundreds, if not thousands, of similar cases, including, as I mentioned, here in Canada. Because social media has been found by a jury to be addictive by design, and harmful to children. So if it's harmful to children, should it be regulated to protect children? Regulated just like any other harmful product is regulated. 1-833-668-2577. That's our call-in line. If you've never called before, just mention that. We will make your call a priority and tell us what you think. Should we regulate social media the same way we regulate other products that are harmful to children? Or should those decisions be made at home by parents? I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
A jury has awarded a young woman $6 million in damages for harms she experienced because of social media. The jury agreed that social media is designed to be addictive. It's harmful. Social media companies knew their platforms were harmful and did nothing about it. So should social media platforms be subject to the same sort of regulations that we have for other products that are harmful to children? Tobacco, alcohol, cannabis? Or should decisions around social media be left up to parents? 1-833-668-2577. Let's get going on Talkback. Colin in Calgary. Colin.
Yes, hi there.
Hi there.
Yes.
What do you think?
I would say yes, it absolutely should. We've reached a point where we can't just look the other way anymore. We regulate everything else that could be dangerous to kids, like toys, cars, and medicines. It makes no sense that the digital world where our kids spend hours every day, the only place with no safety rules. And honestly, even if there are safety rules, they're not being met in many places, I've noticed, even in schools. But yeah, that's what I want to say.
So what sort of protections would you like to see? For example, should there be an age limit? You have to be, 14, 15, something like that?
Yeah, I would say, age limit. And also there's some people, like I'm a disability advocate here in Alberta. There's some people with developmental disabilities that don't know even what they're doing. If that person's under guardian or trustee, whatever, they maybe should have the guardian sign as well and get consent from them.
Right. Would you be willing to say, have a 13-year-old be allowed on social media if their parents approved?
Their parents have to approve it for them, maybe a way where they would be monitoring them. But if the parent approves and isn't monitoring them, then no, because kids are being taken advantage of online these days.
All right. Thank you for your call. Colin, good to hear from you. In Chestermere, Martin is up next. Chestermere, Alberta. Hello, Martin.
Well, hello there, Rob. How are you?
Martin. Good to hear from you. I'm very good. What's your opinion?
All right. I disagree. Okay. I disagree with the first caller. I've got 5 kids.
Fair enough.
And none of them went crazy. The person that went on social media at 6 and 9, the parents should be the one blamed for it. That's their job to take care of their kids. You cannot follow them all around all the time. The age limit is not a bad idea on some stuff, but it's like talking about, like my son got a DUI a couple of years back. Do I blame the beer company for him? No. It boils down to raising your kids right and being a good parent. It's plain and simple.
Okay.
I've got
all right.
5
So you
kids
think it should
from
be
41 to
left up to
26.
the parents, and the government has no role in this whatsoever?
Well, no, I could say maybe a little bit, but how do you enforce it with the government? And whoever awarded this person $6 million, that is total BS. My kids never went online at that age, and if they did, they were at my house, and I would monitor it. I'm an older fellow. Actually, they taught me how to get an email years ago because I'll be 60 this year. So, but I do social media. Sometimes I don't know what's AI and what's real, but no. And the bad part is there's no protection. Look at that girl that committed suicide a few years back because some guy wanted to post their nude pictures. That should be enforced somehow, but they can't most of the time. But come on, Darren, do your job.
Okay. Okay. In fact, the same platforms lost a case earlier in the week over that, failing to police that sort of content on their platforms, and the damages in that case were something like $375 million. But you would say when it comes to regulating social media, the same way you would regulate tobacco or alcohol or pot or whatever, you don't think that's a step in the right direction? That is to stay at home.
It might be a step in the right direction, but if they cannot get rid of people from India who are stealing from us everywhere, how do you plan on doing this? Right?
Well, I mean, that's a topic for. Come on, let's stay focused here. I'm not even going to address that. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Given that a jury has found that social media platforms are harmful to young people, and they're harmful by design. They were designed to be this way, to be addictive, to consume as much time as possible. Should they be regulated the same way other harmful products are regulated to protect children? 1-833-668-2577. 3-4 lines available there. Love to hear your opinion today on this topic. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Social media regulation, our topic of the day in light of the news out of Los Angeles. $6 million awarded to a young woman who says these social media companies got me hooked, ruined my mental health. Rob in Bridgewater up next. Hello, Rob.
Hey, good afternoon, Rob. How are you today?
Yeah, very good, Rob. Thank you. What do you think?
Oh, it's very uncanny timing here, but my coworkers and I yesterday in the lunchroom were talking about this very subject in light of, that recent tragedy here with the high school student here in Bridgewater. And we have coworkers that have children that go to these schools and know these people. And it was just like we started as parents talking like, well, what can happen here? Like, we're just all dumbfounded by the fact that, people were doing these kinds of nefarious acts through, social media venues online, right? Whatever that is.
Right.
I
so
don't
you're
know,
talking
Rob,
about you're talking about the teenager in Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, who seems to have been conspiring with another teenager in Manitoba to perpetrate a school shooting. Is that right? Is that the story you're talking about?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, and then my coworkers are all, they all have students in that school, right? So that's what I'm referring to as that's how close it is to people here, and that's what we're talking about. Like, how, these people, kids are doing these things, right? And right away we went to the conclusion, most of us anyways, it was like, okay, well, if this is the kind of stuff going on, we need to have some, lockdown, like a driver's license. If you're old enough to drive, great. Then you're old enough to understand how to, work the social media world or whatever that world looks like. You know what I'm saying, Rob? Because it's like,
yes, I do. Yes, I do. Yeah. In that case, it's a 15-year-old, right? A 15-year-old.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. And to the point of, this young lady you just talked about, being, mentally, socially engineered, is what's gone on there, in my opinion. And Rob, let me tweak a memory for you. Do you remember the .com explosion in Southern California?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember back then, but videos were being posted by those actual engineers from those companies, right? Because they were pretty proud of the work they were doing back then, when the internet was fairly new and some of the postings that were out there. But anyways, those guys actually called themselves social engineers. And that's where that term back then came from, Rob, because they explained it as they were doing manipulative work back then, right? Making things happen, because of the work they were doing to make people addicted. And therefore, that's why they called themselves social engineers. Anyways, I don't know if you remember that one, but.
Well, I'll have a couple of clips of people who were very early into Facebook, who have great regrets now about kind of the monster that they created. And I'll tell you what, they don't use it and they don't let their kids anywhere near it. So if the creators of this sort of technology will not even let their own kids use it, what does that say about whether we should be allowing our children on here? That's another reason I want to bring up social media regulation today.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at Mark Zuckerberg has always been a guy that says, oh, no, I always put something over my camera. Well, really? Okay, thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that's right. He did say that. Yeah, he did say that. You're right. Okay, Robin Bridgewater, thank you for your call. Very interesting call there from Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, where they are dealing with that case about two people in different parts of the country talking on social media about perpetrating twin school shootings. My gosh. Let's stop here. I don't want to bring anybody on right now. You'd only have about 30 seconds. I want to give people lots of time to express their opinion. So, Miles, hang on the line. Dave in High River, Calvin out in Calgary, Chris in Halifax. We'll get to everyone today. It's a hot topic. It's always controversial when you bring up more government regulation. Is this what we really need? 1-833-668-2577 after the latest breaking news on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Ask you about your openness to having social media regulated in some way with an age verification system or requiring parental consent to be on there if you're under a certain age. Warning labels, maybe. Warning screens, I guess. Or a time limit. I'm open to this idea. Okay, you've been on for 3 hours, you're kicked off. You can log on sometime tomorrow or in the next few days, whatever. What do you think about ideas like that? Or do you think it should be of the discretion of the parents? Miles, thank you for waiting, Miles. First-time caller in Kitchener, Ontario today. Hi, Miles.
Hey, Rob. First-time caller. Thanks for your time taking my call. Really
appreciate
important. Really important. Yeah, really important matter to me. I spent 4 years of my life completely avoiding smartphone screens and looking at computer screens. So I think the research is still so new and it just hasn't been common knowledge yet. But now now you see now that there is some bit of research and more books on this. There's more awareness. So there's a new initiative by Rogers, for example, called Screen Break. So it takes time for the internet was a big change. It takes time for other measures to take place and the whole conundrum of how much screen time is appropriate. But yeah, the research says that developing brains, they're more. Who knows how the impact of that's going to cause to their attention span and being able to focus and being able to be patient to get bigger rewards and not always have fast dopamine hits, and it might alter their motivation for deeper, bigger goals in life. They're always used to they can't stand being bored, But
sure.
Yeah, so I think you'll see more and more regulations come out as more research comes out. But it's a touchy subject. Yeah.
Would you be more inclined to support government regulation? Like you have to be 15 to be on social media, to have an Instagram account, for example?
Yeah, I'd say biggest thing is educating people, parents, school boards of the potential harms of how it could alter, just decrease brain function in different cognitive capacities. Just alarming, I'd say equipping people with the tools and knowledge to make informed decisions. I think not everyone knows all the different implications and hazards and harms of excessive screen time. And so I think it's more education. And so that's why I love seeing outreach and some initiatives like Rogers Screen Break. And I hope to be an ambassador. Because, again, I've spent 4 years of my life living completely offline, no computers, no smartphones. It's a big conundrum. So that's a long story, but
it's interesting. Okay. Yeah. All right. I don't have time for really long stories, but I appreciate taking your call. Let's move along to High River, Alberta. Dave is in High River, Alberta. Hello, Dave.
Yeah. Hi, Rob.
Hi, Dave. What's your opinion?
Yes. Well, I guess I would like to see it be regulated somehow, but I'm not quite sure how. I think that I've got a couple of grandchildren that they've got Facebook accounts and they've had them since they were 12 years old. And it's because they BS their age. They've got the account open and there's nothing you can do to I guess, dissuaded other than be a parent that says absolutely not. I think that parents need to kind of take a look at this and gauge how much time is in front of a computer or on their phones.
Yeah, this is one of the knocks against government regulations. Would it even work? Would it be regulation for the sake of regulation, right? Would it be regulation for the sake of regulation, or would they just find a way around it?
They're going to find a loophole, guaranteed. They're going to find a way around it. That's where, back when COVID was a thing, our kids in Airdrie, or the grandkids in Airdrie, came to our place, and they spent, I think it was damn near 2 months that they spent at our place, just because they were on a farm. They could hang out, and it was, they were, social distancing was easy. We were just out. You couldn't go nowhere. My wife made sure that they did get some screen time, but they didn't get a lot of it. I can't say exactly how many minutes a day, whether it was 45 minutes. I think it wasn't much. It was like 45 minutes, half an hour a day that they got to play with their phone. And they got their schoolwork done. Amazing. Now
Amazing.
they struggle. They struggle getting their schoolwork done because they're up till 1 a.m. I don't want to say his name, but I got one grandkid that told us the last time was he went to bed at 1:30 last night, and it was a Thursday night. Like, come on. What the hell are you doing being on a phone at 1:30 in the morning watching? You're addicted to this screen. So I could definitely see there's an issue, but I don't see how it could be enforced. I really don't.
Okay. Thank you. Yep. Enforcement. Very good. Thank you. That's another angle to it. Calvin is in Calgary. Hi, Calvin.
Hi there. How are you?
Very good, Calvin. What's your opinion?
First statement, the woman down in California, she has a really good lawyer, and I'm glad the lawyers made all that money. It's unfortunate that she's in that situation, but I really would like to know some ins and outs of that. And I do have the answer to it all. It's called parenting. And that's something that a lot of people, that have children refuse to do, is simply parenting. Take the phone away. You don't have the phone in your bedroom when you're in bed. It's put away. You say no to your kids. You're not your kid's best friend. You're the parent. You're the one that's responsible. You can make regulations and, but my friends have it. Okay, well, geez, and there's more ways around it than you can shake a stick at. It just comes down to parenting. Plain and simple. That's my thought.
All right. Yep, I thank you for sharing it. I suspected that would be a popular opinion today. 1-833-668-2577. The jury in Los Angeles said the social media companies designed their platforms to be addictive. They knew it was addictive. They knew it was harmful. They did it anyway. And it's awarded a young woman, 20 years old now, but started using social media platforms at the age of 6 years old. Awarded her $6 million for harms experienced. There are lawsuits pending in Canada about these very same issues. And there have been calls for regulation. Do you think there should be regulation? Or to Calvin's point, no. This is the parents' job. What do you think? This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about social media regulation today. Chris in Halifax. Hello, Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello, sir. How are you? First time call.
Very good. I appreciate that, Chris.
Very much.
I like it that you've called, and I like it that you listen, and I'd like to know your opinion.
I mean, in all honesty, I think it's a no-brainer, but it does start with the parenting at home. And it has to start there because they can enact a law about, you can't have your 15 or your 15 under-year-old searching these social media sites, but what are they going to do? Knock on your door? It's not going to happen. But they should make these multi-billion-dollar companies pay, and they can afford to pay. And as far as that lady, I think it was in California, I think she should have got triple, quadruple that. I mean, but I know from my own personal experience with my granddaughter and my grandson, when we would take them on vacation, I'm not a monster. They had everything they wanted, but I would, my oldest granddaughter at the time was 14. And, and there was lots of kids around where we vacationed every summer over in PEI. Beautiful. And I gave her 3 hours a day. And she hated me. And she
Right.
hated me. But I said, no, I'm not dealing with it. When it's 30 degrees outside and we have a
Get
beach
outside.
100 feet away, with some of the warmest waters in the Atlantic, go to the beach. We'd send an adult, obviously,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
3 hours, that was it. And she hated me for it. And I wasn't brought up that way. Of course, I'm 56 years old, so, but I mean, and no tablet at the table. No. When we're having dinner and you're over for the weekend on Sunday, you can go without your tablet. We leave the TV on, which is 20 feet away. So, I mean, it's just, but parents, it starts with parenting, but
Starts with parenting, but you want the big companies to pay. So, for example, and I'm going to have to wrap up our call there, and I thank you for your call. In Australia, they're kind of the pioneers here. They have brought in an age limit. And if you're under the age of 16, you can't be on social media unless you have your parents' consent. And the platforms, to the caller's point, have to take, quote, reasonable steps to prevent anyone under the age of 16 from obtaining a social media account. And they have even created a new government position with a bureaucracy, the Office of the E-Safety Commissioner, and they're policing social media. And if they find people who are under 16 on social media, these social media companies could face a fine of $50 million, which is, significant. Although these companies are basically printing money. Rick in Calgary. Hello, Rick. Up next. Hi, Rick.
Hey, how are you?
Very good,
Hello?
Rick. What's your opinion? Yep, I got you.
Well, part of the problem is access. And with cell phones, every kid has a cell phone, an iPhone or whatever, a smartphone. And so if you have that kind of access everywhere, it's easy to get to whatever it is that addictive in nature. So part of the problem is not just parenting, it's multidimensional here. Yes, the product is very addictive because you want to see what everyone's saying, blah, 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 blah. But if you have an iPhone or whatever, you can access it anytime at your convenience. And therein is also possibly a solution because kids can't get smartphones, et cetera, from Rogers or whatever. They can't open up a cell account unless they're age of majority. So perhaps that's where it gets regulated, where the devices lock out the social media so that they have to access it from a computer and not through a tablet and not through a cell phone. Just a thought.
Okay.
But
so regulate you're proposing regulate the devices instead of the platforms.
Yeah, because when a parent registers a new cell phone, they say, Johnny, my son is going to have this cell phone. How old is Johnny? 10 years old. Automatically, the parental lock is in there. And that's kind of like how, like when satellite was big, you had your parental lock on your satellite receiver. And so the kid has to enter the code to access it. You can't stop what's being broadcast, but you can stop access to it.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. 1-833-668-2577, regulating social media. Are you open to government regulations of social media platforms? Or should that be left up to the parents, which is also a popular opinion today? Have your say. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Do you think there should be social media regulations, government regulations of social media? Geo, I believe I'm saying that right, in Calgary. Geo? Is it Geo?
Yes. Yes, that's right.
Hi there. What's your opinion?
So to answer your question, absolutely not. The government's already got their fingers in our homes enough that we don't need them in there more. Because, like, you guys keep bringing up the lawsuit that she just won. She's an adult. She's 20 years old. It's not.
Well, she wasn't an adult though when she first started using these platforms. She was 6 years old.
Yes, and that is a parenting problem. But like, I've got Gen Z. I'm a millennial. I've got Gen Z kids. I've got Gen Alpha kids. They've been on video games and internet since before they could walk. But the problem is that it is an addiction. Us as adults have an addiction to our phones and to our internet. So instead of regulating and trying to tell us, like the social medias, they have restrictions. You're not allowed on it until you're 13. So she's on it at 6. That's parenting regulation problems. But why can't they put that money from enforcing, which is almost impossible to do, and regulating, and put it into educating the masses on addiction of and social media and video games? That is not even spoken about.
All right. I'm just saying this is being compared to big tobacco. Okay, big tobacco lied, denied that cigarettes cause cancer, and we have regulations around tobacco. You know, your 12-year-old can't go to the store and buy a pack of smokes because smoking is bad for you.
Science
social media.
Yeah, one science caught up and taught them.
Right.
That it's not.
And social media is bad for you too. Social media is bad for your kids too. So why shouldn't we regulate social media?
Science is just starting to catch up to how dangerous internet is just babies. I didn't have internet in school, and I'm not even 40 when I was grade school. So internet is babies. So where the science is coming along that it's not safe. So instead, regulating in our home, saying that anybody under the age of 16 can't be in, that's not fair to us as parents, but educating us as parents and the kids that it is not safe, like cigarette companies are forced to do, should be a priority instead of wasting money on regulating and enforcing. That's not even possible.
Yep, there's an old line, education before regulation, and you prefer education over regulation. Fair enough. Well, let's take one more. I think we've got time. Sam in Lunenburg. Hello, Sam.
Hey, Rob. How's it going?
Yeah, very good, Sam. Thank you. What's your opinion here?
Yeah, so this is a great subject. It's it's very topical. It's a massive subject, too. But, yeah, absolutely, I'm in favor of regulation. It definitely needs to be controlled. It's basically an addictive substance, and most addictive substances are regulated or controlled in some way by the government. I absolutely agree with, and sympathize with the callers who say it should start at home. 100%, this should start at home. We should be educating our kids. Most of us know better by now. We should be educating our kids that social media and whatnot is addictive. But the reality is, most of these kids' parents are addicted themselves. And, another reality is that most kids aren't, well, I won't say most, but a lot of kids just aren't blessed with, I'll say it, good parents who are going to educate them on these things. I mean, there are lots of parents out there who just let their kids have unlimited access to screen time. It's really quite sinister what these tech giants have done. They've commodified our attention. They figured out, some of the smartest engineers in the world.
That's a great way to put it. That is a great way to put it. They've how did you say that? Commodified. They've commodified our attention. I love that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, they have. Quite by design. Quite effectively as well. Thank you, Sam. Thank you for your calls in the first hour. Full hour of Talkback is still ahead on this topic, regulating social media. Yes or no on that one? This is News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Talk Back. We've been talking about this big news story out of Los Angeles. A defeat for social media. It's big tobacco moment. A jury there has awarded a young woman $6 million in damages for harm she experienced as a child on social media. Depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia, suicidal thoughts, overall poor mental health. The jury agreed that social media is designed to be addictive and it's harmful to young people. And the social media companies knew that their products were harmful and covered it up. So we are asking today, should social media platforms be subject to the same sort of regulations that we have for other products that could be harmful to children? Tobacco, alcohol, cannabis, all regulated. Should social media essentially be regulated the same way with age limits, for example? Or should any decisions around social media use for children be left up to the parents of those children? I've been covering this for a long time. Social media, is it addictive? I mean, you could kind of see it in the growth of Facebook. I mean, it was like crack, the way it was growing when it first came out in 2004. It had 1 million users by the end of it. By the time it launched in 2004, by the end of 2004, it had 1 million users. It basically went from 0 to 1 million in a year. 2 years later, 12 million. 2 years after that, 150 million. 2 years after that, 600 million. 2 years after that, 1 billion. And as of today, 3 billion. From 0 to 3 billion in a dozen years. Because it's designed to be addictive. Those little dopamine hits. Right? Ooh, someone liked my post. Ooh, someone wants to be my friend. Ooh, someone followed me. Someone commented on a picture. And every time that happens, studies are showing people get a little buzz from that. They call it the social validation feedback loop. Who doesn't want to feel validated? It's great to be validated, and social media is designed to validate people. The designers admit it. Like Sean Parker. Sean Parker, well-known name in the tech space in California, helped create Napster. And he was one of the early investors in Facebook. And in the movie, if you've seen the movie, The Social Network, Justin Timberlake plays him in the movie. But in real life, he has told people at tech conferences, yeah, we knew Facebook was addictive. Play the clip.
I don't know if I really understood the consequences of what I was saying. Because the unintended consequences of a network when it grows to 1 billion or 2 billion people, and it literally changes your relationship with society, with each other, with it probably interferes with productivity in weird ways. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them to really understand it, that thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology.
You are exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. When I first heard that, I saved it. It's 8 years ago he said that, and you have to appreciate the honesty, I suppose. But now a jury in California has said, well, these companies, you have to pay for this, for designing your platforms this way, to get people, especially young people, in the case of Instagram, to get them hooked. Bam, $6 million in damages. And growing calls for regulation. To Airdrie. Kathy's in Airdrie today. Welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
I think that it's going back to the phones. Maybe we could go to a phone that isn't a smartphone for kids under a certain age, whether it's 13 and under. So all they can do is make a phone call. And that's one way to alleviate being up all night or staying on their phones all day because they won't have access to social media.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, that option is available right now. If, dumb phones. If they
mandated it, if they mandated it as a government, saying that, this is how we're going to do it. If you're under a certain age, this is the kind of phone you can have. I know lots of people aren't going to like to hear that, but there's got to be a way to stop this next generation from the addiction that the rest of us have on our phones, and learn how to communicate with people. They can't even go to a restaurant and talk to each other. Everybody's on their phones all the time. So
yes.
I just think that we have to create the next generations, give the next generation a better start with their mental health, taking away social media.
But again, you're kind of with a previous caller. You're more inclined to support regulation of mobile devices as opposed to the social media platforms.
Well, I don't think we can get rid of the social media platforms. A parent would have to do that, but I know so many, and I'm in my 50s, so I know a lot of people now that, they use that as it's a crutch, go do this, go do that, instead of being involved. They're on their phones in a restaurant, and it's like, talk, because they say the kids don't behave. Well, talk to your kids. I think there's just been a loss of communication with our kids or with the grandkids, or, I just feel that we need to somehow get involved in getting social media away from them, and with them not having the access to it by just having a flip phone with no data.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, in places where they have either imposed government regulation or they're thinking about it, the things they're looking at are age verification systems. You have to be older than 16 and up to be on a social media platform, unless you have your parents' consent. Your parent can sign you up. Other things that are proposed are things like time limits, strict time limits that would have to be imposed, or even warning screens. This social network could be harmful to your health in this way. What do you think about things like this? 1-833-668-2577. And have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Where do you stand on government regulation for social media? The government getting involved in regulating social media with things like age limits, for example, or is that best left to the parents? GP in Calgary. Thanks for calling. GP.
Hey, nice to hear from you there, Rob. This is probably the first time I've called your show, and I just got to say I do appreciate what you're doing here.
Thank you.
Very kind. I just wanted to talk about it as a healthcare professional.
Okay.
When you're dealing with this, there's a lot of different aspects. I think both from a healthcare's perspective, neurologically, how it's affecting the people around you, but also there's the social aspect, obviously, which social media is trying to conform to. But I think like a problem this big, when you see that technology is this addictive, it's obviously problematic, and we see how it plays out, not just in the social media circles, but the effects it's having on our ability to communicate with our family and friends and so on and so forth. to solve a problem this big, you can't just take one approach. I think you have to go with a combination of different approaches, and regulation being one of them. But also, as people are saying, like, oh, it's on the parents. The problem is like, you know, parents don't control 100% of the time they have with their children. What they do at school, the other influences in their lives are also going to be a factor in their life. So to just say it's on the parents to make sure the kid does a great job, I know a lot of people who have fantastic parents but turned out really poorly, you know? So you can't just say it's parenting. But then
so what would be then some of the components of an action plan, if you will, to try and tackle this problem?
Yeah, if I had to tackle it, if I was, say, in government trying to figure out a best solution, there's a lot of great suggestions that came out. One of them, obviously, is education. Like, people have to understand research and education. You have to understand what's actually happening to the brains of little children. And, you know, when you're getting overstimulated with blue light, how is it affecting your occipital cortex, and how is it affecting your memory in the future? There's actually a condition called digital dementia, where people start developing dementia-like posture and syndromes because of overstimulation of the back part of their brain. So it's like we don't even, I think, fully know the whole scope of these problems. Yeah, it's crazy. There's a great book.
I've never heard of that. Digital dementia. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, give it a look up. It's quite interesting, but it's talks a lot about how this blue light for prolonged periods of times is overstimulating our brains, and the effects that it has on that, not only our sight, but our posture, and also our ability to coordinate and balance. It's really intriguing stuff if you ever get the chance to read a lot into it. But
okay.
But there's
so
also
education,
so that's part of it.
Public education, public awareness. Yeah.
Yeah, then some level of regulation I think is important too, because we can't trust, like one of your previous callers said, that all parents are just going to be good parents, right? And then the third part I think would be trying to shift the model of compensation for these companies, right? Like right now, their current active model is the longer we spend on the screen, the more they're compensated by their advertisers. So if we shift the model maybe to pay for play or some other kind of sort of model that would take a lot of the ability of the companies to have to innovate in a different way to earn our dollars and try to be good stewards of it, right? So
very interesting.
That's just a thought.
Yeah, sounds like you've given it some thought. Thank you so much for your call today. Great to hear from you. And I'd love to hear from more of you. We have, for the first time today, 3 or 4 lines available. The wait won't be too long. We're talking about social media in light of this big news story out of California, where a jury has awarded a young woman $6 million in damages for the harms that she argued, by way of her lawyers, that she experienced through her use of social media as a child. Started using social media at 6 years old. So calls are growing again for government regulation of social media platforms. We've heard it from many callers today, however, they don't like that idea, and that the government has no business regulating social media. It should all be left up to parents. I'd like to know what you think. This is Talkback, and this is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Let's go to Hazel is in Calgary as we talk about social media regulation today. Hello, Hazel.
Hi. So this is my first time on your talk show. As a trained physician, I echo everything that the GP earlier talked about, but I also, in addition, wanted to provide like a global context. I grew up in Dubai, and with the way the government is over there, all of this is anyways monitored. There's a lot of censorship that takes place by way of social media accounts, etc. So that, honestly, that's one less thing for parents to worry about. Because what's the point of talking about mental health issues in teenagers and all of those things at a point in time when that ship has already sailed. I'm 1,000% for this regulation to come into effect. We see grown-ups that are addicted to their cell phones. That's why kids, we've got numerous articles, possibly memes online as well, that talk about how kids aren't getting enough time with their parents because parents are addicted to cell phones, adults, even if you're not a parent. Yes, I think if this regulation comes into play, it's one less thing for us to worry about and not worry about other mental health issues related to social media later on in life.
Okay. So, not being familiar with the Dubai situation, I know in Dubai, the only thing really that I know about Dubai and social media is that they license influencers. Like if you want to be an influencer, you have to get a license from the government, and they will strictly control the kind of content that you can create because they don't want anything that goes against the government, say, for example, right? I don't know if we want a regime like that, but
no, we don't. But then parents over there don't have to worry about kids being groomed and kids being kidnapped as a result of playing Roblox online. So those kind of things do not exist there. And that's a huge, as a parent myself, that's a huge fear element for me. So I'm glad that somebody is policing it. And that's one less thing for me to worry about, So, yeah.
Okay. All right, Hazel. Thank you. Very interesting. Angela up next on Talkback. Hello, Angela.
Oh, hello, Rob.
Yeah, hi there.
This is a great conversation for sure. But a lot of people are going to think the same way because, of course, like the last caller said, everybody's got this stuff in their hand. So my take on it with the kids, and especially this whole court case that was in favor of someone who was a child, it almost sets a precedent for the child to sue their parents for letting them be addicted to something they know that it's addictive. Just like the government knows that it's addictive because there's been studies on it. So there's no reason that things that have been regulated that are addictive shouldn't be taken into concern when people know about it. This is a big study. This is a big thing. And you can go on your phone and you're like, oh, I'm just going to go check my bank account, but then all of a sudden you're on Facebook because your fingers went there. And it's no different.
You raised something very interesting. Let's say from a government point of view, and there's regulation around social media, just as there's regulation around other harmful products, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever the case. If a parent was allowing, say, their kid to smoke and drink at the age of 13 or 14 years old, that parent might get a visit from Child Protective Services, right? Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
But do you want some kind of regime where that could? Do you want some kind of regime where that could happen because, well, you're letting your child on social media for 8 hours a day? That's negligence.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know if I'm comfortable with that. I don't know if a lot of parents would be comfortable with that. But it's a very interesting angle that you brought up that I didn't even cross my mind until you mentioned it. All right, we're back right after the news with more of your calls on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So again, we've been talking about a big news story out of California today around social media. A jury in Los Angeles found Meta, specifically Instagram, which is owned by Meta, and YouTube, which is owned by Google. It ruled that these platforms knew that their products were harmful to young people, and they failed in their obligation to warn users about their potential harms, and they engineered their products to be addictive. It involved a woman who's 20 years old now, but first started using social media at the age of 6, on YouTube at the age of 6, on Instagram at the age of 9. And her lawyers argued successfully that the use of these platforms just took over her life. And she, as a result, developed things like anxiety and depression and body dysmorphia and suicidal thoughts and self-harm. And her lawyers successfully argued the platforms were at fault. They were designed, they were intentionally engineered to keep people like their client online for as long as possible through various features that we are all familiar with and maybe guilty of. The infinite scroll. I do the infinite scroll. The infinite scroll is not good. All of those social media platforms, infinite scroll. You just scroll. Are you really even looking at? Maybe that. No, your attention span is sacrificed, right? Autoplay. You watch a YouTube video and it automatically rolls into the next YouTube video. Beauty filters, which are popular on some social media platforms, so you can look a certain way. The algorithm recommendations, reward-based engagement systems. The social media companies countered and said, well, you can't blame us. Mental health, diagnosing mental health issues is a lot more than social media can contribute to a decline in someone's mental health. They argued in this case, well, this particular person had a troubled home life. And as a result, social media kind of became an escape for her. YouTube, nobody's commented on this. Curtis and I were debating this today. YouTube said we're not a social media platform anyway. Why are we even subject to this? We're not a social media platform. We're a streaming service. Okay, are you a streaming service? Are you a social media platform? What do you think, everyone? Is YouTube, do you consider YouTube a social media platform? When you see a YouTuber, okay, they're streaming, but aren't they also engaging in social media if they're engaging in subscribers to the channel and the chat that's there, the scrolling chat? Is that not a social media component to that? I don't know. What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. There are calls again that these platforms need to be regulated. They need to have things like age verification systems and the like. What do you think? Or should it be left up to the parents to regulate social media? Herman in Calgary is up next. Hi, Herman.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Just going to the issue of YouTube for just a second. They could say that they're a streaming service, except, gosh darn it, they have this thing called Shorts, and that's entirely meant to kind of move people towards the same sort of fast hit of whatever endorphins is necessary. So I think,
yep, and that leads to that infinite scroll, right? The infinite scroll is there with the Shorts.
Oh, let's call it what it is. It's called doom scrolling.
Doom scrolling, sure. That's another term for it. Yeah. Doom scrolling. Yeah, for sure.
But, I think that the discussion is being lost here. We have one case in California. I'm sure it's going to be vigorously appealed. And there are certain other issues that contributed to the mental health issues that the actual plaintiff exhibited. We have a bunch of other situations in Canada, the United States, all over the world, and like eating disorders, body dysmorphia, all of these things, those have been around since before social media. And I just think that there's somebody else who, rather than looking in the mirror and taking responsibility and saying, how am I going to help me help myself? And it's too convenient to actually throw something else under the bus because you don't want to take responsibility for poor decisions that you've already made.
Okay, so where do you stand on government regulation then? Like they've done in Australia. You have to be 16 before you're allowed to have a social media account.
Well, to be honest with you, we regulate alcohol and tobacco and a bunch of other things. And I think there's probably a space for it. But I think on the other side of the equation, and we haven't been having an honest discussion about the privacy factors that go along with social media. And on that privacy side of the equation, the last thing I want is the government in bed with the social media companies invading my privacy further.
Yeah, that's an interesting point as well. Okay, thank you for your call. 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. To have your say on our topic of the day, where do you stand on social media regulation? If you've never called before, just mention that. We love to hear from first-time callers. It's being called social media's big tobacco moment. They've been found liable in one case, and now they're going to have to answer for thousands and thousands of similar cases. There are cases in Canada. All the major school boards in Ontario joined together. They're going after these social media companies because of the disruption that it has caused in the school environment. Because they say these platforms have been designed to be addictive. And now a jury in the United States has agreed. It says, bam, millions of dollars. You owe millions. Could potentially be billions by the time it's all said and done. For your harmful products. What do you think? Have your say. Talk Back News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And social media regulation is our topic today on Talk Back. And it's been a very busy one. Let's go to Dave is in Calgary. Thanks for calling, Dave. You're up next. Hi, Dave.
Hi. I think it all centers back to actually citizenship. So I'll get back to that part after. But if you can separate the supplier from the consumer, you're going to improve the way things are handled. So the real people that have to be managed here are the ones that supply access to the internet. So that's the Bells and the Teluses. If something is found that it's not contributory to somebody learning something important, they should limit the access to the internet for that supplier, YouTube, whatever it is, to like 3 minutes. And then at their end, they can put 6 minutes of their own advertisement in there. And they'll make a profit from it.
Okay, I'm not following. You want to regulate the telecom companies?
Yeah, regulate the telecom companies because they're the ones that are giving access to the the YouTubes and the Instagrams and all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, but it's not Bell or Telus or Rogers that's providing the content that is creating the problem. It's the platforms,
they can regulate the access to the content. And that'll change the content over time.
All right. I'm not sure if I agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, it seems to me we know that the culprit in this particular case was Instagram. But there are all kinds of TikTok, Snapchat, all of them. Why would you ignore what's happening on the platforms and instead regulate the telecom companies? You're not going after the problem. Go to the source of the problem. The source of the problem is the content that is on here and the way that these platforms are designed. That's where the problems lie.
If you want to go back in history, a comparison is like the rag magazines to the media that you're having the legal maneuver there against, right, where they just lost. So if you were to make it so that the rag couldn't be on the newsstand, then you've eliminated the access. So if you can limit the access, then you will change the behavior of the supplier over time.
Okay. I think you're off base. I disagree with you, Dave. Thank you. I haven't said that at all today, but I vehemently disagree with that. I mean, the culprits are not the Telus, Bell, Rogers. The culprits are the social media companies. That's where the problem is. I'm sorry. Who's up next? Curtis? Kyle. Okay. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
Yeah, very good, Kyle. Thank you. What's your opinion?
I'm shaking my head right now about regulating telecom companies, but I get it. These apps are made to be addictive, but I mean, so is everything, Rob. I mean, fast food joints use the color red because it makes our brain think of food and hunger. iPhones take multiple pictures of your face constantly to see that you're engaged and you're interacting with their product. So are we going to go now after everything that's designed addictive in the most moderated time of human history? As a parent, I have utmost control over what my child's consumes on her electronics. There's parental controls, there's lock buttons, there's everything in between. Frankly, and I don't usually abide by conspiracy theories here, Rob, but frankly, I'm seeing this as just a way to control the youth and what media they consume and what news they consume. With this and our previous news ban on social media, the youth nowadays, which are more the most conservative youth we've probably seen in generations, is now only going to be focused to what that screen in the living room tells them now.
Okay. So you're inclined to say, yeah, the government does not need to get involved here with a whole bunch of new regulations, which would, in the case of the Australian example, come with a new bureaucracy. Instead, just leave it up to parents who have any number of tools at their fingertips right now, you're saying?
Absolutely. Yes? I mean, what happened to
Okay.
self-accountability? If I look back when I was in the 90s with my 56K dial-up modem, I had way more freedom in those ICQ chat rooms than my daughter does today.
Yeah, ICQ. Those were the good old days.
You remember
ICQ.
those days, right?
I do remember ICQ. Yes, I do. Is that thing still around? Whatever happened to that ICQ? Yeah, those were good times. Okay.
Right?
All right. Thank you. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. No, thank you to government regulations, he says. Still time to fit you in here on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We've been talking about social media. Thank you for all of your calls today. This social media case in California involved Instagram, not Facebook. Facebook is kind of viewed as the social media for old fogies like me now. Young people not using Facebook as much as they are, Snapchat, WhatsApp, and TikTok, very popular, of course, and Instagram. But certainly Facebook was the pioneer and the first one to really, really take off. And an early player in those early Facebook days was Chamath Palihapitiya. You may recognize that name. Canadian, made a fortune working for Facebook, went on to create another firm called Social Capital. He's so wealthy now, he's a part owner of the LA Lakers. If you've ever heard him speak, when you listen to him, he regrets that he helped create this monster. Play number one there.
I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of there probably aren't any really bad unintended consequences. I think in the back, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. And I would encourage all of you, as the future leaders of the world, to really internalize how important this is. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it and rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. So we are in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. My solution is I just don't use these tools anymore.
He helped create them. He doesn't use them, but he helped create them and made a gazillion dollars helping create them. He doesn't use it, though. And he would later say he doesn't let his children use them either, because it's designed to be addictive. Social media is designed to be addictive. like cigarettes are. We've been asking, well, if they're designed to be addictive the same way cigarettes are, then should they be regulated the way cigarettes are? Just as one example, this jury in Los Angeles has now decided, well, you designed an addictive product. You didn't warn people about the potential harms of your addictive product, and you're going to have to pay, and pay big. And that is just one of what could potentially be hundreds, if not thousands, of similar cases, as I said, cases in this very country as well. Thank you again for all of your calls today. And join us tomorrow. Tomorrow is always fun. It's the Friday Free-for-All Talkback. Tomorrow we'll have some topics, but we would much prefer it if you took the lead. It'll be open line, open topic tomorrow. That's how we like to roll into the weekend. I'm Rob Snow. Until then, for Curtis Giroux, let's bring you the very latest breaking news. And this is News Radio.